Are you feeling the energy of this grassroots collaborative rising?
So, yes. And not like it's ever been before.
You're listening to the Red Couch Rebels, a safe, comfy space for vulnerability and self-growth. I'm Jenny.
And I'm Erin.
We are seekers and self-advocates.
Yeah, we're not your doctors.
Or your therapists.
No, we're just fellow seekers on our own journeys of self-discovery.
Explore your inner rebel with us.
Let's sink in. We left off, I was asking a question, you said you'd feel into it, of like, are you feeling the energy of this grassroots collaborative rising?
So, yes. And not like it's ever been before. So, like, it feels like when you talked about community, you're finding a lot of people within your community or people that your friends and family who have a lot of things that you think similarly about, and some things that maybe you don't, but most things, right now you're in a similar space of wanting to share how you feel. And for lack of better words, well, let's use your guys' word. Everybody wants to use their inner rebel right now to come forward. I like that. I like where people have an understanding of what their inner rebel is, and that their inner rebel isn't to rebel. Their inner rebel is to almost like ring a new bell or something, not so like when you come from that place, like when I was speaking to you about being like that undercurrent of the river, you're giving people a safe place and a trusting place. You're giving them the opportunity of you being a safe and trusting place for them to land. And in their landing comes an exploration deeper of themselves than they had before. Safety means different things to all of us. Protect it. We all have different kinds of ideas and thoughts and feelings about that. But when it's such a, it's just their space, it's that undercurrent of the river. Like, you just don't know it's there, right? So you're bringing this like place that people don't have. People experience with you because of who you are. And so, and I'm not, there's other people, like, there's people around, it's not just you, right? So, but that's, and I think that your feeling of the community is because you are finding lots of people who are ready to land with how they've evolved and how they've worked to build their rebel to be a positive, compassionate space, not coming out of reacting, not coming out of, I got something I have to say, or not saying that anybody else is right or wrong, but coming from a place of education, their own insides, their compassion, and their want, and this is important, their want of everybody to be valued and worthy. And I think sometimes that gets screwed up with the word equality. I think sometimes in politics we don't have the verbiage that we wish we had. And the media has become a space of wanting reaction. And that is part of what I think you had said when you say something big and old is dying. A lot of us are waking up to, I don't want to feel this ick all the time. So some people don't watch the news at all. Some people just say, they get really, really angry and yell or scream or throw things. Like, there's all different kinds of spaces within what they're seeing on a screen or hearing through the radio or whatever. But I think more people are learning, how do I feel about this, and what do I want to do with this feeling? And in that, I think, yes, there's a lot of people and in communities, and a lot of people that are looking for communities to join, to have that together, and then to find or figure out a way to share that. But we're used to having to scream or share or like listen, or like something has to, like, we're used to feeling like we have to, you know, rise up out of something, and be upset or angry in order to share. And I think our sharing has to come more from that compassionate listening space where we're sharing something to somebody who can hear it.
Yeah.
And not all of us can do that. I don't know that I can do that. And the topics are really large. They seem so big. And within each of us individually, they're small. Like, kind of like what you said. I don't feel like I can take on politics or take on the world or do those parts, Erin. When you said that earlier in our conversation, you said, I can be with my community, I can be with my neighbors, I can be with my family, I can, like, I can do all those parts here. And I think the more that people do the steps that they can do, but actually do them, right? Like, do the step, the more people will start walking together in those steps. It just looks different than it has before. It's, yes, there's going to be some stuff that's scary. I'm sure there's going to be riots. I'm sure there's going to be upset. I'm sure there's going to be stuff, right? And I want to also say that teaches me a lot too, you know. So, part of it is how do we understand all of what people are trying to bring to the table compassionately, and then how do we really recreate something that we've never created again before. I mean, at all. And that's exciting. That gives me goosebumps. Like, that's like the,
so exciting.
right? So I think part of it is keeping our own beliefs in that we will do that, and we can, and we're getting there, and it will happen faster than we could possibly think it can. Keep doing what you can to believe that, and in that belief, you're drawing more and more people to you with that belief, and that's what gets shown to the masses, because then it's bigger and bigger and bigger, and that's not just about politics, it's about the whole world and what we're trying to create in that. So that got a lot bigger than what I was thinking about, but does that answer your question?
I think so. Yeah. The apathy, I think, for me, it comes from a place of powerlessness. And also, as you were saying, awakening to what is happening. Like, there's a lot of money and forces at play that benefit from us being divided as a society. And the more aware we become that we are intentionally being manipulated to react and to see outside of us as other, the more we awaken to that, and we come back locally to, first of all, our relationship with ourself, because that also drives some divide within self, and work your way out from there and reconnecting within the home and outside of the home. I think that is the power that's been happening. My brother recently told me, he's like, you're almost part of the majority now, because so much of the country has become, he said, independent, but I would say, like, we feel outside of the party system. We feel frustrated with the party system, right? So for me, it's much more empowering to see the results of my energy being spent. And I don't see results of energy being spent when I'm in debate about a topic that I'm really eventually not going to even have a vote on, right? I just want, like you were saying, like this, we communicated about politics we were screaming because we needed to be heard, but really we weren't really being heard. And in this ground level community action, you do have a difference. You can make a difference in people's lives. You can see the difference, and that feeds too, like it bounces back to you. And I love what you're talking about, how quickly this can happen, because when I was just talking to a woman yesterday, she's creating a co-working space, and we were talking about all these great ideas that could happen in it. And my son is 9. Okay. So I'm like, I really want him to be able to go to like a forest school or a Montessori, or, I have very progressive ideas on education. It's not readily available in our area. But as I was talking to her, I was realizing like there are a lot of people that want these things to happen. And if we shine the light, as a beacon of like, we're going to move forward with these ideas, we're going to make these things happen. It doesn't come down to me doing all of them. I'm just a part of a community that's making this stuff happen that we already believed in. And I love that reinforcement you said of how quickly it could happen. That's exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was something else that came. Sorry, Jen. There's something when you're speaking about this that came out, and it was about, are you willing to fail or be wrong or falter? Because the quicker we allow ourselves to fail or falter and find it, the faster we can move from those spaces. And there's going to be times that we trip up with whatever we're doing, ourselves, our community, our family, right? And it's just like, okay, that's just a trip up, right? So where do we go from here? And a lot of times we want to hide behind them or say it didn't happen or force what we thought was going to work in the first place to do that. And I think that's a piece where it happens fast. When you're saying it can happen fast, it can happen fast because we allow what we call failure or whatever, right? We allow those trip ups to just go, oops, okay, I didn't follow my leg, I didn't do it, I just tripped. Okay, so what's next? Mm-hmm. And the faster that's what causes it to go because it's not just about Aaron being a leader this way or somebody. It's about everybody taking their turns, and in that way, it's a brand new way of being community, because it's like, if I can't do it, there's somebody else. There's always this space where there's enough. And when you believe in the enough and you believe in it can keep going on, and it's not just you or it's not just them, then it goes like wildfire. And that gives me more chills. So anyway.
Be in the enough. I love that. Be in the enough.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Jenny and I were just talking about this the other day. Reasons why we like working together. So like we're trying to be conscious of why it works and how it works, and when it's not working, like how do we shift and do it quickly, and not be afraid to point out this already feels unsustainable. We need to shift. And we've had people encourage us to like take more time with that. Give it 3 or 4 months. Give it this time. It's like, no, but we already feel that something's off. Yeah. Like the faster we acknowledge that you're saying, the quicker we can turn that corner and find a more sustainable way. But in part of what I love about how we work together is, I said, like, if I bring her an idea, the intention is not like to sell my idea. It's like, here's an idea, let's make it better. Yeah. And then there's no ego in that, because it's like, as soon as I share it and we make it better, it's ours. It's not just mine. Yeah. Right. So like it is so exciting to watch more people add into that and make it something better than it ever could have been on its own.
Right.
Yeah. Synergy.
Yeah.
There we go.
Absolutely. I was just going to say, it feels like it could get really, really complicated, but Steph, you're always wonderful in pointing out it doesn't have to be serious, it doesn't have to be complicated. It can really be simple. And I think, a lot of what we're doing ourselves and really wanting to showcase and help others practice is the me search. The more we can connect to our inner truths and find the safe spaces, as you were sharing, Steph, the safe spaces to explore and talk about it, the more we can, evaluate those beliefs, connect to different truths, connect to more layered things. And I think one of the things that was standing out to me before, so, you know, all this talk about people like yelling at each other, I'm reminded of, it was probably some real, I don't know if it was like an old philosophical saying or like monk something or other, but it's this idea of the reason why people are yelling at each other is because their hearts are so far away. So that idea of being in constant conversation and, to the best of our ability, pulling out ego and being curious versus comparing or, you know, trying to one up or prove ourselves. It doesn't have to be, it can be really simple. And I think it also takes practice. So it is exciting, and it's going to take some time, and it's going to take people committed to being curious.
Mm-hmm.
And part of it too, like we talked about earlier, Jenny, one of your gifts is you're able to put into words things that a lot of people can't, in a way that's, like you said to yourself, I looked at that website, I was like, what the heck, that's awesome, right? And I love that you actually said that out loud, because like, yeah, that's what you do. You like bring about this emotion and this space of like, that's awesome. And that's a space we need as well, because people can be very wise and they can have these thoughts and ideas, but to put them into a sentence, because our attention span is so very short sometimes, you know, that sentence catches it and it's like, oh, right. So part of what I saw you doing with these podcast pieces is, after you listen to the all, not just the part that you put into the cast, is coming up with a few sentences of like Jennyisms or something. They're kind of like little pieces that come to you, or like, you know, in the middle of the night or something, and it comes from like maybe a podcast you did 6 weeks ago or something, but something comes in from something, and it's like, I think there needs to be like a little Jennyism column, and it doesn't have to be just you, you know, to both be, but it was just kind of like a thing where it's like, I think it adds something different but unique to who you are, but at the same time it's in written form. I don't know why, that's just what I was seeing. So
Yeah. Well, I think part of it, I mean, as we were sharing earlier, it, for me, it's, you know, I think we're all gifted, we're all intuitive in our own unique ways.
100%.
And when we come together, that is when the magic can happen. So, just the other day, I think Erin and I were texting. Was it over the weekend? I think it was over the weekend.
Don't
And
know what she's talking about.
yeah, I'm going off on
Funny,
the,
we're
yeah,
like, do you know
you
what?
can catch up this time.
Okay.
So one of the things that I think it's when we were talking about how we work together and what we enjoy about it. And as I mentioned, this idea of me search, you know, connecting to your inner rebel, connecting to your inner truths, excavating those beliefs, perhaps rewriting, reframing, redefining, whatever it might be. That work is super important. Alongside what I feel like we're talking about is we search. And so
Okay.
one of the things that Erin and I were talking about over the weekend was this idea of me search and how important that is. And then I was like, but we need something else. And I was like, us search, but that's not it.
And I'm like, we search?
Yeah.
Thanks for the easy pass there. Easy
Yeah.
layup.
So the Jenny, whatever isms,
Jennyisms.
the us search was not it. It had to, yeah, it needed some collaborative co-creation there. So yeah,
Always.
we searching is absolutely going to be critical in our homes, in our teams, in our friendships,
Yes.
in our communities, in our nation, in our worlds. And it is exciting.
I think one other big piece that really is showing up, I'll say louder and louder, is nature, and how
Mm-hmm.
nature just has this instinct and it follows it. And yes, sometimes, you know, there's accidents or things happen or there's extinctions. I don't mean it like, but I mean it as a whole, right? Um, the more we connect with nature and Mother Earth, the easier things can flow, because that's just how it is. There's no thought. It just does. And for me, anyways, animals and ideas and trees, and I get so much love and information and just like from how they're showing up. I don't know if I shared this with you, but I had a mourning dove show up at the end of May. It landed on top of my car when I was coming home from my sister's up north, and she's really going through a tough time and not feeling well, and it's such a beautiful space to be with her, and it's a hard space to watch someone you love in struggle, and we're all in some sort of struggle, but it's hard too. And she's my beloved sister. And so I came home and I was just kind of ending my conversation with my fiance and getting out of the car, and I hear this clunk. And this mourning dove landed on top of my car. And for 2 months now, it doesn't matter if I'm gone for a week, 4 days, if I'm gone and come back, every time she shows up and she's just makes sure she leaves something, not just like on the top of my car. She puts things in like in my on my windshield, on the back of the car, in the sides of the car. I mean, I can drive all the way to Stevens Point and there's still stuff stuck in my car. And at first I was like, what is going on? And it was kind of weird. And I told Matthew, I said, I'm leaving at times and I can tell you when she gets off the car. Like, I can feel her leaving and she's like driving down the road with me. He's like, there is no way. And I'm like, it's how I feel, but I couldn't prove it. I mean, I can't see my car when I'm driving,
Mm-hmm.
And so one day he was watching me leave and he texted me and he said, she stayed on your car all the way till you turned off down the road. And he watched the whole way and she just sat on the car. I'm not going slow. I like speed, but I'm in the alley, I'm going 25. But she's just with me. And when I finally looked her up as a spirit animal, she's about peace and compassion and all these pieces. But it's like I almost needed the bird to bless me with all these twigs and all these silly things all over my car to teach me about how much blessing I have all the time. And it's just, I've been there, but it's just a bigger space. I don't even know. And I don't know why she keeps showing up. She's got to have a family or something somewhere. I don't know. But I feel like she's part of what I'm talking about with nature, where they just follow what they know to do. And right now she doesn't have any understanding, and at least I don't think she does. I don't know. She's a mourning dove. She might be a lot more spiritually connected than I have a clue, but she just keeps showing up, and I will be very sad when she stops. But it's just all around us. I feel like nature's just an easy place to go back and like re get into where we want to be when we're feeling full of anything else.
Yeah.
So anyway, another tangent. I'm full of tangents.
I love it though. I love it. A slightly small tangent. So I was re-listening to the episode with Jenny Rainica and connected a couple dots. And it's probably one of those things where somebody else listening is like, what? How the hell are you connecting those dots? But this is my belief about synchronicity. So in the episode with Jenny, I shared a dream that I had, and I feel like my dream and referencing a baby that I had named June correlated with a tree that she had named June, and just re-listening to the podcast, what it connected for me is that I have been nudged. I've had these synchronicities to connect to nature more intentionally and, connect to tree spirits and just all of those different things. So it's really cool to hear you talking about this mourning dove, where I think we can create meaning that feels good to us around that. And, my belief or wondering would be, I think that mourning dove is showing up for a reason, as a reminder for you. And I'd be curious if there is any sort of communication, or, I mean, even if it is just a reminder for you, but I do believe nature has that energy and those spiritual ties, and that it's not just coincidence that there are synchronicities in it. So even if it is something that's reminding you of all of the abundance and beauty around you, especially as you know, support family and we each navigate our own struggles.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Nature is pretty wonderful in that way.
Right. I feel like there's a lot of in there. Yeah.
Like you were saying, it may be more spiritually aligned than we realize.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I know that we normally break this like into 2 parts, but we're kind of like all over the place, so we're probably just going to end up splitting it because
Yeah.
I need to go back in her rebel story because
Yeah.
there's a gap for me.
Oh.
Yep.
Between the health issues rising and the stepping back from your spiritual experiences to fit, I'm going to use my words, you can correct me if they're wrong. Stepping back from your spiritual experience to fit into the family dynamics, the community dynamics. When did that shift back for you? Because clearly it shifted back.
Yeah. I think there were times where I was just given information and there wasn't a way for me to question it. So there were times throughout that period of time where I had some information and the way I received it was very just truth. So it didn't feel like absolute, or didn't have like a feeling with it. It was just like and it just kind of, it almost like it settled my system kind of information. And that would be about possibly somebody else, or about something going on with myself, or about um, like my husband, or something at that time. But then um, when I first started seeing Dr. Adams, when I walked into his office, he was the gentleman out in Canada. He said to me two things that I think gave me permission for some reason. And he had this unique gift of he didn't take any tests. He didn't do anything like a doctor. He was a naturopath, a homeopath, natural doctor. So I would lay on this like massage table, and he would just test some of my pulses and sit there, and he would just sit there and listen. And he had this ability to like see videos in his head of things that I had in my body, or experiences, or whatever. And one thing he said was, he said something to the extent of that it was okay and that I will be okay. And the way he expressed it was the way I believed it. And nobody's ever said to me before, you'll be okay, because your job is to look for what's wrong. You go to the doctor and something's wrong. They want to look for what's wrong, or, try to figure it out. But when they can't figure it out, there's no like, it's going to be okay, because they don't know. Right. So the first thing he said was like, where you are is exactly where you're supposed to be, and you're okay. And even though I had a knowing of that, it seems so opposite of it because of I was experiencing in life. And at this point, the bleeding was not only coming out the nose and my eyes, it was also vaginally. I mean, it was just wherever it could come out generally, it was happening at that point. I was so like, I was seeing gray and white. I couldn't see color anymore. I mean, I didn't wave at the kid. Like, I just didn't have anything left, right? And the other thing he said to me was, and this sounds kind of strange because he said he never says things like this out loud, but he said, oh my goodness, who stole your spirit? And later on, he explained it to me in a way that I had a different understanding, but he could, I don't believe in somebody stealing my spirit, and I don't believe necessarily in what we call a fracture of a spirit or a broken spirit, or but I think that's the best way we can say it. Is it was like somebody else felt what I had inside of me, and I felt safe that he did, because I felt like he it wasn't like he wasn't going to do anything to me or take it away or not make it my experience. It was still my experience and still was happening to me. But it was the first time that I think I felt understood. And I think I needed that. And that's when, because when I went in to see him the first time, I was actively bleeding, and he was able to help me stop that in that moment. And then gradually over a few years, it like got slower and slower and slower and slower. And at different times of my life since then, it got, amped up and slowed back down. But he, so I would say somehow through that experience, I felt like I had permission and that I was okay again to reconnect with that part of me. I think for some reason I thought that was the wrong part. And nobody told me that, right? It wasn't like somebody said anything like that to me that I remember. But there were things that were said to me and whispered to me in ways that made me feel bad and wrong for things that occurred. So I think I just took that all on that way, and that I was just a bad space because of those pieces.
Do you think that the disconnect from the spirituality is related to the physical manifestation of the bleeding? If reconnecting helps slow it, can you see a pattern of that in the other times it's increased?
I would say yes. Um, so, we have all gone through lots of experiences in life, and there are times where, because of what I had beliefs about myself, and because of the uh, unconscious way, I would say, I believed about myself, I would choose people that would continue to treat me poorly, to be like main characters in my life. And there are times I think I was to leave earlier than I did, or we were to separate earlier than we did. And when I didn't do those pieces, the bleeding was very profound. When I'm not listening to my inner self, or if something's off, that's when it occurs the most.
Makes sense. Does it feel, Jenny and I often use the words, and I know other people do too, abandoning self? Does that feel?
Well, I think it's kind of like we talked about earlier with the dual part. There's a place of surviving, and when you're living out of survival, you can't make a choice outside of that, in a way, I guess, until you can, right? Like, so I think at times that survival connection was all I could hold on to. So uh, I don't feel I'm going to survive this if I change anything. You know, that fight, flight, freeze. Now they say friend, because sometimes we choose what isn't comfortable to be our friend, because it's what we know,
Yeah.
right? But it's not safe. It's a different kind of fight, flight, and free. Fight, fight, and freeze. So, which I find interesting. I feel like I did that a lot in my life, where I would choose people to be in my life because they kept me in the fight and freeze special area, where I thought that was I was surviving, because I could feel it. So I must be alive.
Mhm.
So, not necessarily abandoning self because I was about surviving, but like, um, abandoning capital S self, abandoning the larger self of me. And even abandoning seems a little harsh, because I think in a way I thought I was protecting it.
Mm.
Oh, I love
Like, by
that.
not
Yeah.
connecting with it, it was surviving on its own. And then,
It's like it's not put in danger because it's not actually present in
right,
this relationship that feels unsafe.
right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Do you feel like there was a sense of, so for me, I've mentioned, and I can't remember if it was a podcast or another conversation, this idea of hiding behind a mirror. Do you think it's that kind of protection? Like, was it protection from others and you, or was it protection, like, just in your experience of like, okay, I'm just gonna like wall this off from me and protect it in that way versus from other people? Does that make sense?
I'd say at different times of life, both.
Sure.
Um, I think there's more on that, but I'm not sure what.
Yeah. Well, for me, it starts to bring up a little bit of, um, I know what we've talked about in like when you and I have had calls, and I know a bit of it is how you work with other individuals. And what we would say is you connecting to, um, helping them connect to their inner rebel, to their inner truth, to their sense of self. And a lot of what you've shared is this idea of, when it comes to shadow work, having more of a compassionate lens around it. So when we think about protecting self, or in my case, hiding behind a mirror, um, how does the idea of shadow work and how you've helped others connect to their inner truth come up for you?
I like to look at shadow work a little differently because even the idea of shadow for me uh, has a tendency to feel a bit like people are what they hold, how do I say, how they feel shame. So I kind of like the esh, the shush, the shoulds, the shame, the shadow, um, and I believe that what we call shadow work, or what we call the dark parts of ourselves, or the things that we haven't lit up yet, are some of the yummiest, most expressive, surprising, um, infinite spaces that we are. Like when they're discovering the dark parts of the dark DNA, or they're discovering pieces of the epigenetics. And I think about that and go, yeah, that dark stuff we don't know anything about, right? It just drives me crazy. It makes me so curious and excited. Like, oh, okay, so what are we going to find now? Like, and sometimes it's like we all kind of wait for science to kind of show us what it is. And our 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 stuff is unique to us in so many ways, and to our family lines, and to our friends that we have, and our what we've chosen to live in life and how to live. So I like to excite people about creating friendships with what we call shadow or dark. And I don't like to use the word work, because so many people think of it as work, or a kind of a hardship or a struggle. And yes, I'm sorry, there are times where it feels like that, and it feels like sometimes to the depth of the core of we talk about ego burn off, we talk about all kinds of stuff. There's times where it's like all you want to do is just puke and blah, and not deal with it and go away and all that. It's there, right? But it's not there forever. And
Mm-hmm.
it's 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 something that I think um, is our like larger gifts. And I don't want to say larger, but I do. I think there are larger gifts. So what you decide to do with, I think it's more about what you decide to do with what you've discovered. is where the yumminess is. And when we decide not to judge ourselves or put almost like a temperature on what this is and what this is, and this is better or this is less, or don't show this, or this is, you know, then we don't do that to others as much.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like this social platform, I am not a part of. I don't know how to be a part of. I know I will be a part of it. I don't, like, as Jenny knows, I don't have Facebook. I don't know how to use Instagram. It's just so weird to me. And part of me is my ignorance, and part of me is, I don't know if I want to join that world. Like I said to her the other day, I was like, I really want to be personable with people and be in connection with them, not just on the internet, but at the same time, you can have a ton of information and learn so much and have a lot more people in your life and more connection through social media. I think that the more people do the shadow work, the less people will be so negative and behaviorally, sounds like a weird word, behaviorally inadequate.
Sounds like a really nice way of putting it. I have some swear words I would have put in there instead, but I'm kind of blunt that way. It's okay.
I love swear words.
Behaviorally inadequate.
No, but it just, yeah, but because it doesn't feel good to them putting it out there either. But they're not connected enough to know that what they're typing doesn't feel good to them. And I'm not judging them that they're not connected. That's the wrong way to say it. Sometimes we don't have a space where we look and go, does this make me feel good or not so good? And I don't mean like good, like ever hurting somebody else, but I mean like, is this something that I want to put out there that makes me feel like I'm sharing? And because you can say a lot of things in a kind, compassionate, genuine way and disagree. Mm-hmm. It might take a little more time, but once you start doing it more and more and more, it won't, right? So, yeah. Anyways, I don't know how I got on that tangent either. Sorry. You guys are bringing it out on me. Can you tell I haven't talked to anybody in public for a long time?
You're following the pattern with Jenny and I. We just kind of wander.
Go wherever.
I love that because I think that is finding those magical corners that we weren't planning on ever visiting. Those are like some of the best pieces of what comes forward. So
yeah,
thank you for exploring.
It's really, I mean, when you think about conversations that you have with friends, it's how it rolls. I mean, there is no agenda. Yeah. I mean, sometimes I will say it if it's somebody I haven't seen in a while, like I want to make sure I talk about these 3 things, but there's still really no agenda. Yeah. It's just like, I can't forget these things. I want to hear an update on these things or whatever. But I think it's just the reality of how we can show up for each other and play, which I know just working with you are all about bringing more fun and silly and play into the picture when it comes to some of the serious and hard stuff. Yeah. And that's not always easy, but it is what can.
Is that part of the call girl? Is that part of the call girl energy? It feels like it. No, I'm serious. They're laughing at me, but I'm serious.
Like my name to like the beautifully fucked up call girl.
With the fun and playful and not taking yourself too seriously. Yeah. And
no, actually,
I guess I'm kind of making it a party girl.
It's so funny.
Or is your call girl related to that royalty from the last life? Like,
yeah. I think you're probably right on both sides, but you're cracking me up. It's so funny about a 2nd grade story, right? Here comes my bra out with my call girl. Hey, ladies.
Perfect timing.
Yeah. So funny how it comes back to a 2nd grade story, right? But it's like plays through your life. That cracks me up that you said that. I think you're right. Like, yeah. I don't know. I'll have to talk to Matthew about my call girl side.
There you go. Yeah.
Hey, we search.
Yeah.
We search
Research it. Yes.
I'll be sure to share. Stay tuned for podcast number 4.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Perfect.
right?
Yes.
Oh, I love it.
Bringing it back. That's great. Well, you mentioned it, so I want to come back to it. Your website is beautifully effed up, but it's phd up.com.
Because we all got our own PhD and be beautifully fucked up.
Yes. Yes.
But it so captures everything that we talked about. You know, we each have our shit, our shames, our should that we can let us just pull us down into the gunk of it, even though it is the reality. And I think we have days where we have to be in that gunk.
Exactly.
And there are other days when we can search for the light and the morning dove and or community to find the beauty.
Yeah.
And remember that regardless of what's happened to us or things that we've gone through or things that we've done, we are all still beautiful. So I love your energy and how you show up for yourself and others in that way.
Thank you very much, Jenny. Thanks for keeping my energy going, because that's what you do. Put me out in the world.
We'll get to share you more now. Like
Yes.
this is gonna be on socials and YouTube and
Oh, wait a
people
second.
will be able to find you. Wait, she didn't sign the waiver yet. We should have let her do that first.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really don't want to take any phone calls for a call girl, though, okay?
Yeah.
That's not what we're
False
at least not for
advertising.
Stef, right?
This is not code for anything. Oh. Well, I'm excited that people are going to be able to find you and that you're sharing your light. And I think I know you feel like such a safe place to explore those shadows because you bring the excitement into it. And it's like once you start seeing the unknown as potential instead of something that's just fearful, that is so exciting, right? And I see you holding that belief very firmly and putting that out for other people to consider.
Yeah, I find it exciting. So, and there's times I don't want to know any more about myself. Oh no!
Yeah. It ebbs and flows.
Not today. Not
Who
today.
says I have to
Turn
live
it
what
off
I
today.
say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the human part of it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You guys, thank you so very much for listening to your inner rebels, finding your inner rebels, being open to them, buying a red damn couch, your cool microphones, and like putting yourselves out there and then saying, who do we love? Who do we want? Who do we want to share? And then it's such a huge honor, and it was scary beforehand. Today it was fine, but it's just a really sweet space that you both, I don't want to say hold because I don't believe in holding space. You both embrace and empower and allow people to be who they are, and it's just a natural thing for you both. And I know you've, lack of better words, worked hard to allow yourselves to feel safe, to bring that safe to others, and so including myself. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah. An honor to create and always connect.
Yes.
So we will be in touch.
Until next time. When we hear the update on the research.
Yeah.
I'll bring the fun into that.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Red Couch. We would love if you would head on over and subscribe to the podcast. and leave us a review. It helps us tremendously as we rebel against the status quo of disconnection. We need you. We appreciate you. You can also head on over to our website, redcouchrebels.com, to send us a note and explore your inner rebel with us on our online network. We'd love to see you there.
I believe that what we call shadow work, or what we call the dark parts of ourselves, or the things that we haven't lit up yet, are some of the yummiest, most expressive, surprising, infinite spaces that we are.